If you want financial freedom, time freedom, and want to leave a legacy for generations to come, you probably have heard real estate investing is the place to do that. How do you get started? What do you have to do? When's the right time? If you are looking for those answers, you've come to the right place. My name is Kyle Stanley, and this is Fearless Flipping. My mission is to help you learn this business and conquer real estate investing. Hey, welcome into Fearless Flipping, where we are teaching you how to conquer real estate investing, no matter what type of investing it is, through the means of real estate. You can conquer it by just following these steps and also listening to these experts and taking what they say into action. Now, before we get started, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, hit that notification bell, review on the podcast. All of it helps. It really does help. Even just one little thing really helps us to be able to get out to more people. And I'm excited for you today because Dustin Mathews, who is a part of Wealthfit and has his own podcast called Get Wealthfit, which has just barely been out for less than a year, is just killing it. He's got big time guys on his podcast that are teaching his viewers and listeners how to invest their money wisely. And it's not just with real estate. That's why I wanted to bring him on today, because I really think that, yes, real estate to me is the best investment out there, but maybe to you it's not. Maybe it's a great investment, but it's not the best for you and for your personality. So maybe there's something that Dustin can share, something that you can follow and listen to him on his podcast that will really reign true with you, resonate with you, and you can start to invest in that, because it's not just about conquering real estate investing. It's about conquering your life and conquering your mindset, conquering everything so that you can go out there and be the best version of you, both as a person, financially, for those around you. So let's get to it with Dustin Mathews here on Fearless Flipping. All right, guys, we got a fun one today. Dustin Mathews calling in from San Diego. I'm excited to have you on, Dustin. Now, this is a little bit different just for all of our listeners. We're not really necessarily talking about strategies of real estate, just necessarily the entire idea of wealth behind real estate, because Dustin has his own podcast and his own gig that he's working on, which is called Get Wealthfit. So Dustin, thanks for being on, man.
Yeah, Kyle, thank you big time for having me. I'm ready to light the world on fire today.
Awesome, man. Well, tell us a little bit about Get Wealthfit.
Yeah, absolutely. So Get Wealthfit is the name of a podcast that we do here. And as the sign shows in the back, Wealthfit is basically our creation of really getting people excited about things like real estate, stock investing, just all the different ways to create wealth. And so the show covers all sorts of topics on the different ways of creating wealth in your life, and not just financially, but also wealth in other areas, with your relationships, with your own self, with your family, that sort of thing.
Well, and as you can tell, Dustin has got a speaking background. He's done it from stage for a while as well. And I'm just excited for you to kind of share your journey here, Dustin, of what's led you to Wealthfit.
I founded and ran a business for 9 years called Speaking Empire. And it basically trained folks how to communicate on a stage or webinar or podcast now, all these different medias in which we can communicate these days. And one day, essentially, I woke up and I asked myself this question: do I want to be on this path? Now, I should mention this, Kyle, this is super important. For me, and I suspect many people listening to the show, you're achievers and you want to create something, you want to build something, you want to get into real estate, do that first deal, do that next deal. And sometimes we don't take a moment to slow down. I was that way. And so what ended up happening in my life was my grandmother passed. And I hadn't planned on speaking. I wasn't doing the eulogy or anything like that, but something moved me to speak. And I got up there and I don't even remember what I said. I actually remember looking down on myself. And that question popped in my head. It's like, do I want to be on this path? And so I asked myself and I said, do I want to be on this path in 5 years? Answer was no. So I said, how about 3 years? Answer was no. And then I asked myself, okay, do I want to be on this path in 1 year? And the answer was no. And I said, crap. I got to do something. Because if it was 3 years, I didn't have to really do anything yet. But it was 1 year and I just determined I just no longer wanted to be there. So I took the time to slow down. And so essentially I exited that business, had my partners buy me out. And I just took time out and I spent it with my boys, had 2 young boys at the time. And we were building sandcastles and making pumpkin muffins. It was right around Halloween. And I just took time off and it was great. However, the builder creator in me, I got that itch. You know what I'm talking about, Kyle? I got the itch.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. And so one of the pieces of advice I got was, make a list of your network, all the people that you know, and just start calling them. So I got on Dexter's chalkboard, that's my son, and I started calling people. Some people I really wanted to call because I'm like, oh, that sounds like fun and exciting what they're up to. Some people I didn't want to call, like, ooh, did I burn that bridge? But I did it anyway. And out of that, I found out about Wealthfit. And basically our mission is to empower entrepreneurs and investors to create wealth in their life. And I said, man, I can get behind that because at Empire, at the company I had founded for 9 years and ran, I put everything into that business dreaming of some Silicon Valley-like exit one day, and it never happened. And so I wish I had picked up a few more long-term rentals. Maybe I could have done, a flip in between, in those 9 years, like one flip. Is that like, out of the realm of possibility, while running a business? No, like I could have done that, but I didn't. And I put all my eggs really in one basket, or at least most of my eggs in that basket. And I didn't get the big exit. I didn't get the big, payday that a lot of us, dream about if you're building a business. And I said, I want to communicate this message to so many people that are, either building a business or maybe they're only doing real estate. They're only focused on one thing. And, what I found in all my research and interviewing a lot of folks, Kyle, is wealth is created in many different areas. You may jumpstart real quick in one area or over time. But if you look at the world's wealthiest, they're diversified. They have different investments that they're a part of. And I'm like, I got to share this message with the world. So here we are.
Hey, that is an awesome story, brother. I just like the fact that you got to work on just picking up the phones and figuring out who's got something for me. What does Grant Cardone say? Who's got my money? Who's got my next job?
It was that. Yeah, absolutely.
That's awesome. So we're going to get to real estate here in a second, but I just need to, first of all, let everyone know that's listening, Dustin and Get Wealthfit came out in October. It's now June of 2019. So it hasn't even been a year and he's already done over 120 shows. Like this guy is pumping out content. So you need to go check out that podcast. Absolutely. So the number one thing though, I want everyone to know is as you're, interviewing these people, do you see a common theme amongst all of these people who have built wealth?
Yeah. I mean, the big thing is education. So, right now, let's say you're successful in real estate. However, it's going to feel awkward, maybe clumsy to get into stocks if you've never done that before. Or maybe, real estate's great and you always thought about oil and gas and wanted to understand that, but you're like, oh, I don't want to lose my shirt. It seems to be risky. Well, the same thing applies, real estate, people say it's risky. However, they're uneducated. And so the big thing that I see is folks will educate themselves, not that they're going to be the tactician in this investment, but enough to figure out who are the people to consult, who are the people to potentially hire or to guide them. And so, I mean, the big theme is that they're willing and open-minded to education. And so, that's how we grow. I mean, it's why we listen to podcasts. It's why we put out podcasts. Is we've got to get enough knowledge so that we can have intelligent conversations. And then this is a big one, Kyle, not to be trapped by that education. So a lot of people just keep acquiring information. And I was this way and still tend to get this way, right? Whenever there's a new comfort zone or a new area, it's oh, I want to just go crazy on investing. I want to know everything, or on education. I want to know everything before I jump in. And that's what I found too, is people will get enough education, enough information, and then they will go act. And that's really where the rubber meets the road, because that's where you learn experiential knowledge, not the book knowledge, the 15 different ways to flip a property, but it's okay, now I'm talking to a motivated seller. What the heck do I say in that moment? And so you've got to educate, but be quick to act every single day.
I love that. So there's that happy medium between not educating yourself at all and getting too much education before you take any action. Yes. And, I think just like anything too, when it comes down to investments, there's that shiny object syndrome, where you you get excited about one thing and then you get started in it and then you kind of are like, oh wait, but then there's this over here. And that's so easy to do in real estate. But I know just from a personal standpoint, what was it, about a year ago, Bitcoin was that thing for me. I'm like, ooh, shiny object. And I literally, Dustin, I invested in Bitcoin the last day that it was at its peak. It's gone nothing but down since then. So, but that's my fault because I didn't educate myself, So now let's transition over to real estate. Sure. What do you see based on all these different ways that you're interviewing people, learning about investments? What's the power that you see in real estate?
Well, here's what's most recent and fascinating to me. So I had the chance to interview Mark Kappelman and Steve Eskenazi. They are in the Airbnb space, short-term rental space, and I happen to have one. And so that's nothing new, right? Airbnb, you've seen it in the media, you've heard about it. But what was interesting that I just didn't know was they shared with me this concept that you can actually go and, I don't want to say option, you can actually go rent a property and in the lease communicate before signing the lease. You communicate with the owner of the property, the landlord essentially. You communicate with them and let them know of your intention to be on the hook for the payments every month for rent. However, your intention is to actually make this a short-term rental. Now, real quick, as soon as I say that, a lot of people are going to say, well, what person's going to want to do that? Listen, it's a numbers game, just like anything. Like, who's going to want to sell their house at a discount? Yes, there are people out there that exist, right? And so that's how we make our living. And so there is this possibility that essentially you are arbitraging, you are optioning, if you will, a little bit, real estate, and you don't even have to own it, which is the most fascinating things, because a lot of people think to do an Airbnb or short-term rental, you have to do it. That's a big objection. However, you can go about it this way, put your name down, be on the hook, and it's a little risky for sure. However, you now then can turn that into a short-term rental, and you actually, in some markets, you can make double and even triple the amount of rent in season. I want to be real clear, like this isn't like get rich overnight, but there are pockets here where you can make triple what you would get in rent in certain months in certain marketplaces.
It's genius. I've heard it before. And the number one question I have for you about that is it's probably more of the privately owned than it is the property management. Yes. Okay. Yeah. Is that what you guys talked a lot about?
Yeah, that's exactly, you hit it spot on. And so the big thing is like, you need to ask, but your odds, substantially go up when you're talking to someone privately about this. And so this really gives anybody the opportunity to get in, because money is a big objection for a lot of people, even though, as you know, we don't need money. It doesn't have to be our money to get into real estate, but this really removes that objection of like, I can enter into a deal and I can start profiting.
And you've dabbled a little bit in the Airbnb market as well. What have you seen with it?
That's right. So I've got one right now. It's a unit on the back of a property that I own that is a long-term rental. And so for us, we're getting bumps and bruises along the way. But I'll tell you, man, in season, so it's in Florida, and in season, man, we can experience up to triple the rent. Now in summer, it slows down, and so it's a metric. Sometimes we have gaps in vacancy, and people should know that. However, it is far outweighing the cost of getting triple in peak times, that even if we have some vacancies or we rent it a little below market to keep the place occupied, we're still able to profit and make some cash flow, but at the same time get all the other benefits of owning that real estate, depreciation, taxes, all that sort of stuff.
Dustin, I think we could sit on this topic for a long time. I've been doing Airbnb since 2015, house hacking it in my own home. And now I'm getting to that point where, buying some investment properties, thinking to myself, well, if I could make $50 a night on one room, what can I do for the whole house?
Yes.
So
that's what we do.
I think, and that's awesome. So I think if people want to learn more about that, they need to go do some research. That's not the main topic of what we're talking about today, but really, I would like to know what's your long term for your real estate investing?
Long-term rentals. The big thing is, like the flips, I'm not excited to go in and get my hands dirty at this point. I am still fascinated by business and building a business with the intent to exit that one day at a great multiple, right? To get that thing that I've been, chasing. And so I'm very interested in that. So I'm looking for stuff that's more passive to me. So long-term rentals that, are turnkey. So there's a lot of different companies out there, JWB Invest and Memphis Invest, and there's good companies out there that will do a lot of that. Now, I'm not going to profit, cash flow wise, a great deal. However, I'm not thinking that. And Kyle, that's my big lesson is I was very seduced by the certain businesses that I was a part of before, where it was get the money now and you'd have these spikes in revenue, but I was never really focusing on long-term wealth creation. I'm fortunate I'm still relatively young. However, I just wish, and it's the same thing that other people, years try to pass down to the younger generation. I just wish I had got it started sooner, with long-term rentals. Like I could imagine right now, if I had bought one a year, I mean, one a year, I'd have 9 right now, and I don't. So, yeah, that's
Yeah.
my
Well,
long-term
and
play.
Brandon Turner has this method called stacking. Are you familiar with that?
No, go ahead.
So it's instead of going one at a time each year,
Yeah,
and maybe every once in a while you throw in a duplex or something like that. It's
yeah.
1 in year 1, and it's 2 in
2.
year 2,
Oh,
4 in year 3, and you just
genius.
double it every time to where at year 5 you're somewhere in like 60 something rentals because you've just doubled and doubled and doubled. So, that
Genius.
might be something to look at too. Uh,
Stacking.
so, I think you have while your expertise and your experience in this is still coming about.
Yeah,
I do know that you've interviewed some big time people when it
yeah,
comes to real estate investing. Aside from the Airbnb stuff, which that is super interesting, what
yeah.
other either common themes or interesting information do you see that most people should know about real estate investing?
Well, one thing I should say is sometimes it's easy to look, at the talking head or the guest on a show and say, man, they just, born with it in the blood. And so earlier on in my real estate career, especially being in Florida at the time, pre-construction was really a crazy thing. And so I invested in that, and it didn't go well. Fortunately for me, I managed to get my money back from it, but a lot of people didn't have that. So, the important thing, I learned a lesson from that. I got caught up in sort of like you, Kyle, in the crypto thing, maybe got in a little late. I got caught up in it, and I executed late and paid for it essentially. And so I think people should know that. Other things that I'm personally invested in, it being my mission to share other forms of investment, is life insurance, and not the life insurance where like, hey, you're going to die and your family's going to get the benefit of it. Yes, that is one of the benefits, but participating whole life insurance, and there's other forms of this particular vehicle, but it allows you essentially to put your money towards life insurance and then pull it out, and you can put it into real estate, you can put it into a business, you can put it into whatever investment you want, and you can do it tax free in that. And the beautiful part is when you go to pay that back, you're paying yourself back, not the bank. And so some people call this as, be your own bank or infinite banking. And it's all just really predicated. These are fancy names, but it's predicated around certain types of life insurance. And so for the last maybe 5 years now, for the last 5 years, I've been contributing to this. And now I'm able to take out a cash lump sum and put this into investments. And I'm really excited about that.
That's awesome. I'm excited about the conversations I'm having today. I just spoke to another guy who's out in New Mexico that just educated me about self-directed IRAs.
Yeah.
And this is fun stuff. These are the things I feel like that a lot of people just are not getting educated about. And it's really sad that and I'm sure you see this as part of your mission with Get Wealthfit.
Yep.
We aren't really told about these ways to get wealthy. We're told about these ways to be kind of comfortable in life, and not many people are comfortable because they're worried about paying the bills. So what do you think that reasoning is that a lot of these things just aren't kind of spoken to the public?
Yeah, I mean, in school they didn't teach us this. Did you get taught this in school? Do you remember that? Yeah, no. And every time I say that, like, someone will send me a story of a school starting to do this, or a district, or somewhere in the United States that's starting to do it. So that's great. Like, I am for that mission. However, it's not prevalent yet. It's not every day. It may be a class here. If you're lucky, you may have a semester of it, but it's not taught in school. And if you actually think about this, and I don't want to fault teachers, but if you think about it, when you do go to school, you've got a teacher there, and the teacher generally is going to make 50, 60,000, depending on where they are in the country. Some parts really less, which is really unfortunate, but that's how it is. And so if you think about it, like, if you're learning wealth creation or real estate from that person, and they don't have a portfolio or trying to do it on the side, this is not like a great scenario. And we can't fault the teachers. It's just that they're trained in other things. And so the other challenge is financial planners. A lot of people turn to financial planners, and this isn't any ill will to our financial planners, but sometimes financial planners, or all the time actually, they're compensated by the products they sell. And there is like ethics involved in that. However, a lot of products, such as your flip and real estate, they don't get a piece of that. So they're not going to be as inclined. They might recommend a REIT, but that's, more, that's not like a flip, strategy there, or even, you don't get the benefit of the long-term rental in that scenario. So that's a challenge too. And so the big thing is, and I did this, Kyle, I was too busy to learn. I was busy. That was my excuse. Whether it's a job, for me, it was I'm too busy because I'm building this business, right? I don't have time for that. And that's unfortunate. And so, because when 9 years go by and you look back and you're like, I couldn't have done at least one deal a year, or the stacking method, like, gosh, I totally could have. And so I think, it's just a product of our environment, and you have to get to a point, and I'm sure there was a point in your life, Kyle, where I don't know if you hit rock bottom or you were just sick and tired of not being where you wanted to be. And emotionally you got to that point. And some people just never get there. And so they're not forced to go seek education and a new path. And they just continue to live that life. And that's why you and I exist, is to really show people there's a different way.
Well, I think you hit it on the head. And I think the overarching theme of what we're talking about today is just self-awareness and education. Because, yeah, I mean, that's the thing, Dustin. I didn't hear the word passive income until I was 26 years old. Like, that's what everyone should be going for from day one that they start making a dollar. And I think it's a crime that people aren't educated about this. So with education being the theme of what we're talking about, obviously people now know to go to the podcast, Get Wealthfit. But there's also a website. And I just want to give you the floor to share with us, how else can Wealthfit educate us about other ways to get wealthy?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, big time. We've got the show. So, if you love podcasts, and you're open to, outside of real estate, because we cover a lot of different areas, check out getwealthfit.com. And more than that is on wealthfit.com. So it's real easy. It's either a get or wealthfit. So, that in there. On wealthfit.com, you can find really detailed resources online that walk you through. So not surface level articles or content, but really how-to guides to get in and actually, analyze a stock, or, what's that checklist for building that business. That's available on wealthfit.com for free. And then there's a paid component, a membership component, where if you want to get real tactical with an instructor or with a trainer, there are courses in the library, and that's how we bring the ultimate value to the world. And they're actually shot here in this little setting here. They're more elaborate, and the lights are, turned on and fancier here. But they're amazing courses that really give you the step-by-step on how to execute a certain form of wealth building or preservation, which is key too.
That is awesome. And we will also have the links of those to our show notes at fearlessflipping.com/Dustin Mathews. And Dustin, I just want to leave with this. There's so many people listening to this right now that are wondering how to take that first step, how to take that next step with real estate investing. And a guy like you who is super busy, that is trying to invest in many different ways.
Yeah.
What is your number one piece of advice for those people that are wanting to try out their luck in real estate?
Yeah, I think this might be a little different. I'm going to say detach. So very much for me, and maybe I'm telling my own self this for advice, but I put a lot of expectation on myself, and I like to create and create results. Like everyone loves to create goals that are achievers, right? Like we like goals. However, and goals are great. Like I still do goals. However, detaching from that. And so when you add that pressure of, I got to do a real estate deal this year, or I've got to, start a business, now's the time. Like there is so much of that pressure from social media, maybe from other people. But when you detach from, like when you set an intention, when you set a goal, and then say, listen, like it's going to happen when it's supposed to happen. And this isn't an excuse to be lazy. But when you detach and take that step back, it sort of creates this space, if you will, this time that really allows you to say, okay, great, I'm going to do this because it's going to make a difference in my life. It really allows you to get that clutter out of your head of, the self-sabotaging and the bad, things that we all go through, and allows you to move powerfully forward. And a lot of people just don't create that space or take that time. And they're so driven, myself included. So that would be my advice.
That's awesome. I think that is great advice, especially for an analytical person like me.
Yep.
I have a tendency to overanalyze, my man. And I just love what we've talked about today. You just got to educate, you got to detach, and you also have to go to wealthfit.com so that you can start conquering real estate investing. Thank you so much, Dustin.
Kyle, thanks for having me on the show.
fearlessflipping.com/getwealthfit. That's where you can find the show notes. If you have questions about Airbnb, questions about whole life insurance, make sure to check out that show notes. Comment down below. on the blog for the show notes, and we will get to your questions. I've been doing Airbnb for 5 years, and I have a lot of success in it. I can give you a lot of knowledge. I've been doing it with apartments, with homes, all over the place. Dustin's been doing whole life. He's been learning all sorts of things, so make sure to comment. We'll get you the right resources, and you can conquer real estate investing. You can conquer regular investing. Just conquer your life. That's what it's all about. We will see you next time on Fearless Flipping.